The Sports Renegades podcast on SportstownChicago.com.
Say what's on my mind at any given time of day, cause I'm a renegade. Never been afraid to holler about anything.
All right, welcome into the Sports Renegades here on SportstownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky. Again, we've got a big show this week. We'll be talking about or discussing the NL and AL Cy Young races. Who are the front runners?
Absolutely.
And we'll be making...
There's a couple Cubs that are front runners.
We'll definitely be making our predictions for the three finalists in each league. Also, that'll be coming up in our second segment. We got plenty of Cubs talk, White Sox talk.
White Sox talk.
Speaking of the White Sox, on this day in 1976, in the first game of a doubleheader, the White Sox wore shorts against the Royals.
That was just yet another strange uniform that Bill Veeck wanted them to wear.
They wore pants in the second game of the doubleheader.
Maybe they figured out that maybe scraping up our knees isn't such a good idea.
Yeah, and they were those collared jerseys that they wore too. Here's a picture.
Right.
They're just the collared jerseys. They look similar to those ones that Chris Sale cut up.
It's totally a 70s thing, and the way that they used to, and they also used to wear red, so they kind of looked like the Boston Red Sox instead of the White Sox. And then they transitioned into those uniforms that they wore in the 80s, the winning ugly ones that they still wear. Most of the time now, I think the majority of their home games, they wear those 1983 uniforms, which I don't understand why they wear those as the majority of the time. They never really wear their home white pinstripes.
Yes, and also yesterday, which was August 7th, Barry Bonds hit his 756th career home run, passing Hank Aaron for most all time.
I remember watching that. It was really cool because that was before I sort of knew all about steroids. So I was like, oh, wow, he's the home run leader. How awesome. He passed up Hank Aaron. Cool. Then it's like, he's really, not even on the list.
Yeah. So, anyways, I was thinking this first segment, obviously, Kyle Hendricks is pitching very well this season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, extremely well. He's got the lowest home ERA, right?
He does. Second lowest to Kershaw.
Second lowest to Kershaw, but the only active one right now, I guess, because, hopefully Clayton Kershaw will be able to come back soon for the Dodgers' sake, but, yeah.
Right, and next segment we'll be discussing all the Cy Young contenders. However,
right.
This segment I wanted to compare Hendricks' stats at this point, where he's at right now as of August 8th this season, compared to Jake Arrieta's stats on August 8th last year.
I would think they're pretty similar.
Well, right now Kyle Hendricks is 11-7. He has a 2.17 ERA. A 1.02 whip, 112 strikeouts in 133 innings pitched. He's allowed 10 home runs. That includes the one he allowed yesterday against the Oakland Athletics, and a 210 batting average against. And he's walked 35 batters.
Right. I mean, he has just been outstanding this year, and there's really not much to say. No one gave him any sort of gratitude or anything. Earlier in the year, nobody thought that he'd pitch like this. They're like, yeah, he's our fifth man. He's just sort of in there. He's
the best fifth man in all of baseball.
Yeah, well, that, and he's one of the best pitchers in baseball right now.
Yes. And at this point last year, Jake Arrieta had a 15-6 record, a 2.38 ERA, which that is 21 points higher than Kyle Hendricks' ERA right now.
That's interesting. I would not have thought that. I would have thought Arrieta. I mean, I would have thought they'd be similar, but I would have thought Arrieta's would have been lower.
He had a .99 whip, so his is just a tick lower than Hendricks at 1.02.
It's because he didn't walk anybody last year.
Yeah.
I mean, Arrieta did not walk like a single batter.
Yeah, and this year has been different. He had 158 strikeouts in 155 innings pitched. So he pitched about 20 more innings and has about 46 more strikeouts.
Yeah.
I mean, Hendricks is not a strikeout pitcher, which could end up hurting him in the long run when you get towards that race for the Cy Young. Arrieta had 39 walks at this point, which is only 4 more than Hendricks has. However, that is in 22 more innings pitched.
Right.
He had a 206 batting average against, which is a little lower than Hendricks right now, and he allowed 10 home runs. So they both allowed 10 home runs at this point last year, which, as we know, Jake Arrieta did not even allow another. He allowed 1 home run the entire second half of the season last year.
Yeah.
In what ended up being the greatest second half pitching performance in the history of the game.
Yeah, and I mean that just shows you like Kyle Hendricks isn't that far off of that. I mean, he's got a lot of similar stats as Jake Arrieta had last year. So it's crazy, especially when you look at the National League and all the guys that are just so good. I mean, it doesn't even compare to the American League this year as far as starters go.
Right, and then obviously Jake Arrieta ended up finishing the season 22-6 with a 1.77 ERA, a .88 WHIP, 236 strikeouts, and 229 innings pitched. Walked just 48 batters, a 185 batting average against, and then allowed the 10 home runs. Were, for me, the key stat when you compare, and now to compare with Jake Arrieta's 2016 stats, the thing that jumps out to me is he's already walked 50 batters this year.
Right.
He walked 48 last year.
Well, and you can tell when you're watching a game that he's out there on the mound, he's walking more people, and, it's getting him into some trouble where if he gives up a hit and he's not walking anybody, it might not turn into a run. But this year, especially, in that... especially in June and half of July when he wasn't pitching so well, he was giving up those walks and then he was giving up hits, and they were just coming around to score.
Yes, he only walked 1 batter in his 8 shutout innings on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, he's been really good his last.
He's been very good since the second half started, and right now Arrieta's 13-5, 2.59 ERA. 1.03 WHIP, 143 strikeouts, and 142.1 innings pitched, 50 walks. He's allowed 8 home runs. Only a 189 batting average against. So the interesting thing about that is he has a much lower batting average against this season at this point than he did last year.
Wow.
That shows the walks are the problem. He's walking way too many batters.
Yeah.
That's why he's giving up more runs.
And we've heard on the telecasts and stuff. I mean, his stuff is great. His stuff, is arguably is just as good, if not, a little improved from last year.
Right. It's just kind of the control. He hasn't been the thing that I've noticed. He hasn't been able to finish off batters once he gets to those 2 strike counts, where last year he was striking them out or getting some weak out, where now he's throwing about another 5 or 6 pitches in that at-bat, which hurts him going deeper into the game, and he's throwing way too many pitches, and then the idea is keeping him fresh for October.
Yeah, exactly. And then when you look at, because in our next segment we're going to talk more about Arrieta and Hendricks, and I guess
all the Cy Young candidates, particularly how incredible the Cy Young race is in the National League this year. I mean, it's going to be mind-blowing. Where the American League, there's a couple guys, that'll come to mind that are pitching very well. I mean, right now, though, I just want to get your take. If the Cubs were playing in the 1-game wild card again, who's pitching for you?
For me, it's still Jake Arrieta.
Absolutely. I mean, you can't forget his performance in that game last year.
Right.
In that really tough Pittsburgh atmosphere.
When it matters most, he's going to come to play no matter what. And Hendricks is younger, a little less experienced. I just think it would be a better fit, if they were in the wild card, to have Arrieta pitch that and then Hendricks or Lester start.
I'd go Lester.
Game 1.
See, I would go with Lester in Game 1. Mm-hmm. And then the thing with I'd probably go Hendricks in Game.
That's what they did last year, I believe, right?
Well, they went Lester and then Hendricks in Game 2. I would honestly go Hendricks in Game 3 because that would be your home game. Mm-hmm. That'd be your first home game.
And he pitches a lot better at home.
So you'd probably go Hamill in Game 2 and then Arrieta back in Game 4, which last year went Lester, and Hendricks in St. Louis, and then Arrieta in Game 3 at Wrigley when they hit 6 home runs.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had the game Hamill pitched like 2 innings in Game 4, which they ended up winning.
Luckily, they ended up winning.
Yeah, which Hamill's been much better this season. He's pitching.
He has.
Which the thing that I said is that what the Cubs need is they don't need the guy that pitched like he did in the first half last year, and then the guy that pitched it as terrible as he did in the second half. They need the guy that's in between that. Jason Hamill was not as good as he pitched in the first half last year, and he was certainly not as bad as the guy that pitched in the second half last year.
Right.
I'd say he's more the guy in the middle, and that's exactly what he's been doing this year.
Yeah.
He's still pitching well, where it was probably his first or second week of July last year when his arm fell off.
Yeah, he was starting to not pitch so well. Can you believe that the Cubs, if they win tomorrow night, they're going to have 70 wins already, and it's going to be August 9th tomorrow, and they could have 70 wins.
I mean,
they're 69 and 41
that's
now.
just awesome thinking about, because in 2012 and 2013 they didn't even get to 70 wins.
No, and I mean, if you look at how long it took for them to get to a certain amount of wins, I mean, season was almost over, and they barely got 60 something wins. So it's really remarkable, just the way that they've been able to do it. And now Soler came back, and he's hit 2 home runs in Oakland. So I mean, it's pretty crazy, and that just means that there's going to be more moving parts in the infield and outfield now that Soler is back, and they're giving him another chance.
Yeah. The only issue I
himself.
have with the roster is that they chose to keep Chris Coghlan over Tommy La Stella.
Right.
And which I
agree.
do have an update on Tommy La Stella.
Did he finally report?
No, he did not report.
I mean, I understand where he's coming from, how he's being upset, but
There's no reason for him to be sent
down. If you have
down.
a chance to be on the Cubs
not,
team, I mean, you have to report, because you're probably going to get called back up at some point.
So here's the update on Tommy La Stella that Kerry Muscat gave today. La Stella apparently has made a deal with Cubs management to work out, however, not report to Iowa. He was not happy about being optioned to make room for Chris Coghlan, and he was given more than the normal 72 hours to report.
Yeah.
Manager Joe Madden said La Stella was taking batting practice somewhere, just not with the minor league team.
Where is he? I mean, where in the world is Tommy La Stella? I mean, nobody knows.
He has yet to appear in a game with Iowa. Give Justin Grimm credit, however. He was optioned on July 30th and pitched for Iowa on August 1st before returning to the Cubs when Jason Hamill was placed on the bereavement list.
Yeah.
When Hamill was activated Wednesday, the Cubs will need to make another move. They've already gotten rid of Joe Nathan.
Yep.
I mean, Grimm has been pitching very well recently.
He's been pitching well after the All-Star break, especially.
And even a little before that, he was pitching better than he had, because that National Series, his ERA ballooned. And I'd honestly rather have Justin Grimm than Joe Smith, who they acquired at the trade deadline from the Angels.
Yeah.
Except they're going to keep Joe Smith, because why would you trade for him if you're just going to get rid of him like that?
Right. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's certainly very interesting, because you're going to keep Mike Montgomery because you traded for him, and you're going to keep.
You traded
Joe
a lot to get him,
right.
and he's a guy that's under club control for a while.
And I know he hasn't pitched well, but you're assuming that he'll turn that around, and he did have a good year with Seattle before he was traded, and also you're not going to get rid of Joe Smith like you said.
Right. We're going to take a quick update, and then we're going to continue our Cubs talk. We'll continue that off with how great the pitching staff has been. At 4:30, I'm Ryan Risky with your SportsTownChicago.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. Bears center Hronis Grasu has torn the ACL in his right knee, unfortunately ending his season. Brian Mattis has cleared waivers and will report to AAA Iowa after being designated for assignment on August 1st by the Cubs. White Sox general manager Rick Hahn said that discussions with Robin Ventura and the coaching staff about their futures with the team will wait until the end of the season. Ventura is in the final season on his current contract. Ichiro hit a triple yesterday for his 3,000th career hit, making him just the 30th player in MLB history to reach 3,000 career hits. Clayton Kershaw has resumed throwing and is targeting a return in September. This has been your SportsTownChicago.com update, brought to you by the Illinois Media School. For more information on a career in media, visit beonair.com.
All right, welcome back to the Sports Renegades here on SportsTownChicago.com. I'm Ryan Stuprich.
And I'm Ryan Risky.